have a stable of people that I work with often, and I think most of us do. When you start to get into a shorthand, especially with like a key, I would say a key and department head relationship is one that's very symbiotic, because my opinion is that a key should know how to do everything a department head can do. They just don't. They do other things than the department head does, but if a department head needs to go somewhere and is not there, that key is the person that steps up into that role. And so again, taking from V's world, I hire people who are incredibly competent around me, and who could do this same job that I'm doing. They can't do it the way I would do it because I'm me and they're them, but I don't, a lot of people get threatened, I think, by having really talented people around them. I'm not that person. I'm like, dope. That means we're going to make something that looks so much better than I could do on my own.
Absolutely.
So I have a tendency to certainly staff based on the needs of the project. Because I like to work on a lot of different types of projects, that means I'm going to utilize a bunch of different people. On Task that we just did last year in Pennsylvania, that was a job that had a lot of struggles that we had to overcome as a crew. So it was a hard location job. We were rarely, if ever, on stage. We were in Pennsylvania in the summer, outside. We also had a big cast. We did a ton of tattoos on that job. So that was that's its own entity and its own animal. That's basically prosthetics, just kind of different. You're still gluing something made out of glue onto somebody's body that has to look real. So I had to have people on that job that were fast, because that was probably one of the biggest constraints that I was given when we started that job. Was we are daylight dependent for this entire show. We cross-boarded all 8 episodes. So we basically shot an 8-hour movie. Wow. That, again, if you hadn't ever done a cross-boarding like that, that would have broken your brain, I think. For me, I prefer that, because I'm like, oh, it's a movie.
Yeah.
Right. Got it. I just break it down like it's a movie. I don't really worry about the episodes here or there. I know where they are, and I know the break points, so that we can build tension and stuff like that with subtle things. But the character arcs. So, but that was really hard, because then you're that's a movie. That's a hard ass movie.
It's like 3 movies.
Yeah, all at one time. Yeah. So you're shooting second units. We had something like 57 tandem days or something on that. We were basically running 2 units simultaneously. We would have 3-4 cameras,
And you're the head between those 2 units?
Yeah, I was the head for, we had a core 4 team on that. Makeup departments are usually 2 people, core, which is the department head, the key, and then we have a third position that tends to be
like the Bert.
The Bert.
The third of the makeup world.
We're just going to start calling it the Bert from here on out.
When you're running tandems, the makeup artist follows their actor. It's not necessarily following your unit.
That depends.
Really?
That depends on the size of the actor and how production is running it. It is always preferable in my world to do that.
Yeah.
Because you, again, have the same consistency. And it's also about the same hand. I mean, to be a really good makeup artist, you need to be able to match a lot of different people's hands. But not everybody can do that. And that doesn't mean you're a bad makeup artist. It just means that, I'm an incredibly light-handed makeup artist. I do sheer washes of everything. To get to a big drag makeup, say, I would have to push myself. I'd be like, oh, okay, because it's a different amount of makeup, it's a different hand.
Right.
I may not be the best person to bring in for that if you have other people who do drag makeup all the time. So that's sort of the way that I staff accordingly. However, I'm going to be the right person to bring in if you need somebody who can do fucking anything, so. Right. So you staff kind of accordingly to that. I couldn't bring somebody on task that didn't know how to do tattoos, because that was such a significant part of what the job ended up being, because we had doubles, we had, all those kinds of things. Similarly with prosthetics, but if you need, Hunger Games is a great example of that. I watched the way that they staffed that, and it was depending on which Hunger Games it was, they had slightly different people in there doing say all the big capital background. By the time we got to 3 and 4, it was all those big beauty avant-garde, which your average makeup artist doesn't get the opportunity to do that all that often. So they're not going to be as good at it. I was teaching a class for the union with V out here, and I remember talking with her about it as she was like looking at everybody's skill sets and stuff like that, and we were chatting about it, and and I was just saying, the thing that's a bummer about New York is that it's the same types of work here, right? Like you don't get the opportunity to really flex your muscles and do a lot of different stuff once you get out of the indie world, where you kind of have to do everything, right? Because you're like, well, I don't know, somebody's got to do it, so I guess that's me, So it's a shift, but it's a nice shift, I think. Task was such a great experience because I really had to pull out almost everything from my experience to do that job, because it was a project that was originally going to be smaller, and then it just bloomed into a much bigger entity. We had stunts, we had all kinds of different stuff, car rigs, all the yummy meat of doing a show like that. And it's really fun. It takes place in the same universe as Mayor of Easttown, is the best way I can describe it. Different cast, different characters, different setting, but
Same vibe.
But yeah, it's very much Brad Inglesby, the creator and writer, is from the area, and he's in so many ways. When we were shooting this, I remember we were shooting this particularly precarious stunt thing that I won't go into yet until it airs, but we were just in this moment, and I walked up to him, and he was kind of like surveying, the insanity of what it was we were doing. And I just said to him, I said, Brad, this is like a love letter to Pennsylvania, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, I think you're right. Because we were shooting some of the most beautiful cinematic shots of trees and just the world around us, and there's a lot of this that takes place sort of running through foliage.
Like outside Philly.
You were not in Philly then.
We were not in Philly proper for most of it.
Grease poles and shit.
You said the word beautiful.
We were not in Philly proper. We were outside.
This was downtown.
We were Delco babes. We were Delco babes down there. So
Delco.
yep. So that was it was really amazing too, because as part of that team, we had a bunch of people from New York, and then we had a bunch of people from Philly locals as well. Bethany, who was our co-key, was phenomenal. She's from Delco, so she was our like, Bethany, do you buy it? What do you think? It was like if Bethany could sign off on it for us, that would be that. And that's such a huge boon when you're doing a show that exists in a real place. Even though we weren't doing real characters, you still are. There's an authenticity that having someone who's from there brings that I think was really amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you would get all the stuff of like, oh yeah, I totally went to high school with that girl, whoever it is you're putting on camera. So that like, okay, you're nailing it if the people that are from there are saying, yep, there you go. It's like when the paramedics give me a like, wow, that looks really good. Whenever I do a like blood thing, I was always like, yes. I was like, is director happy? Yeah, that's fine. As long as the paramedic's like, that looks really real.
That's what it looks like when someone's face
That
goes
is what
soft.
it looks like, yeah. So, and this show gave us a little bit of everything. We were doing doubles, we were doing hair work, we were doing tattoos. This was a huge tattoo job. And tattoos are such a fun part of what we get to do because they can push someone into a character makeup really quickly with relatively minimal effort, and you get a lot of payoff from it. They're tricky to work with because people, and by people I mean other filmmakers on set, because tattoos are so accepted as just a thing in the wilderness and the wild now, that you get people that won't treat them in the same way that you will prosthetics, even though there's still something glued on top of someone's skin. Like they're not actually real, but the more real they look and the better. I've done my job the best if nobody has any idea that I did anything, which is
there's
hard on the ego.
There's some actors that I see with tattoos, and then when you see them without tattoos, you're like, wait, you don't actually have full sleeves? Like,
and
what?
tattoo cover is a whole other part of it. So on this job, what we were having to do is we utilize some of the actors' real tattoos, and then there's a whole process of like going through clearances and getting like signed off from the tattoo artist that actually did it because they own the artwork. It's
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That happened on Yellow Brick Road because one of the actresses had all of the they were like Tim Burton drawings on her.
Oh yeah.
So she had to get a letter clearing that artwork because it belonged to a larger
So
section
that
thing.
becomes an even bigger deal
Yeah.
because you're dealing with whomever owns those. Yeah. So if that was Disney or whoever it is, I'm not sure who owns the rights.
But I can't imagine you have to get clearance for a little this is a
au contraire, mon frère.
thing that I told my guy to draw.
Tattooed yourself in prison.
Well, no, I told
if
I
you
came
were the
up with this,
tattoo artist,
but I
it's so the idea is the same way the art department has to get a painting cleared, right? It's sort of the same idea. You got to get the studios all to sign off on whatever the image is, but the classic ones were if you have a copyrighted image, can't do it, because then they're going to have to get. If you have Tweety Bird, you're going to have to get Disney to sign off on your thing, plus then go through, we were HBO for tasks. So if somebody had a Tweety Bird thing, they'd be like, okay, who owns Tweety Bird? That actually happened to me on Murder at the End of the World. We wanted to put on a Studio Ghibli tattoo on one of the characters, but we could not get the clearances for it in time because we had to get, and when you get clearances, it's similar to Apple. If you guys have ever worked with Apple or, any of those companies for art department or props, there's stipulations about what kind of content they're willing to work with you on.
We heard a lot about iPhones.
Yeah, iPhones. Yeah, they're exactly. So it's what you can and can't do and what is the content. It will change and we actually ran into that on task as well, actually. We wanted to get... there was a couple of local tattoos that the filmmakers that were making this were everybody had this tattoo when we were growing up here, and it was okay, we can't get that because it's gonna, it's the 76ers logo or whatever.
I thought you were gonna say it's fucking the Birds eagle.
Yeah, I mean, sports ball.
Go Birds.
But exactly that kind of a thing. So you'd have to get the NFL to sign off on it and all that stuff, which rarely are they going to do unless you're working on something where you've got Brad Pitt in it or an A-lister who has some, But even then, it's going to limit the choices you can make as an actor because you can't say a bad word or you can't, whatever the stipulations they put are. So it affects your performance. Fair enough. So I think when you're dealing with something like tattoos, when you have all you're doing is putting a tattoo on, great. You just get rid of the hair on the body of wherever it is you're trying to put it on because it will not stick over hair. And then good to go. If you have a tattoo that then you have to cover with makeup and then put another tattoo on top of that, that's even harder.
Whoa.
Because the makeup
That's tattoo inception.
It is tattoo inception, which is when you have to do a tattoo cover and then a tattoo over the top of it, that's those are the things we try to not ever do to ourselves so that when you have to go back and redo them, that you're why did I do